Alrighty, welcome back everyone. We just dealt with a couple of games in the SEC that I think are really fascinating for this upcoming weekend. Texas, Arkansas, we had LSU, Florida, two games that both those teams, Texas and LSU, could fall out of the CFP race, could fall out of the SEC race in this one. So definitely a couple that you want to keep your eye out on, but we got some upset alerts beyond just the SEC. We got some upset alerts that I want to get you guys updated on, and I think we gotta start with Notre Dame. And I know they've become a very frequent member of this grouping, but I think you know why. That early loss to NIU is still in the back of my head, so I can't necessarily get it out. Notre Dame is up to the number 8 team in the country, looking very, very solid right about now. Virginia's coming off a big-time win over Pitt. It was a little bit of an ugly one that had a questionable call towards the end of that game, but at the end of the day, Virginia gets a huge win, goes into this game with a ton of confidence, and I think it's one of those teams that is just looking to wreak havoc over the next couple of weeks. I think they have a couple of big-time games that they can just mess up everything in the ACC and even beyond that. If they win this game, then Notre Dame walks into a game against Army that could have felt like a CFP play-in game. It might just feel like Notre Dame is there for no reason. And now they obviously want to win that game, but just to say, Virginia could kind of ruin the mystique of that matchup that we've been building up over the last couple of weekends. And I think the biggest thing here is there's a number of quarterbacks kind of across the country that have just this thing about them. It's Diego Pavia. It's Ashton Daniels over at Stanford. It's a couple of these guys that not necessarily the most physically gifted, not necessarily the most special athletes or, going to throw the ball 60 yards downfield or hit everyone in stride every time. But they're really gutty. They're a team. They're a player. They're a team in general that can just fight. That can find a way to get through all of the punches, find a way to get through all of the craziness, and come out with a win. Virginia and Anthony Colandrea is one of those teams. Anthony Colandrea is one of those guys that just leads this team absolutely fearlessly. He is the guy that wants to make every single play. He wants to get out there and run the ball and get hit a couple of times. He wants to set the tone from a physicality perspective for his team. And that's not common for a quarterback. You'll look around the country, you'll see a couple other guys, but at the end of the day, that's the type of guy that can lead you into this stadium, lead you in against a top 10 team and not flinch. And that's kind of the biggest thing here. You need your leaders to not flinch. That's exactly what Diego Pavia did against Alabama. That's exactly what a number of people, Joey Aguilar, even last year, did it when he walked into Texas A&M. That's another gritty guy. That's a guy that is not going to be denied, that is going to just drag his team to a better performance than they would have usually had. So there's going to be a lot of things that go into this game, and frankly, Virginia's probably going to need a couple of takeaways to get into this game and to really get this win. But all that being said, they feel like that team. They feel like a team that can go into a place that they have no business winning in, that they probably shouldn't even be in the conversation in, and they find a way to get it done. So I think it's going to be a really sketchy game. I wouldn't necessarily be too concerned about Notre Dame losing it outright. I'd be pretty concerned about this one being close in the fourth quarter. So I'll put a 1 out of 5 on the upset meter, but it being close would be definitely a little bit higher on that upset meter. Definitely something to watch, and if Virginia wins it, all that mystique around the Army-Notre Dame matchup kind of fades just a little bit. But moving forward, we got SMU, the team that fell a little bit in the rankings this past weekend, even though I don't think they should have, but that's beside the point. They do get Boston College at home this upcoming weekend, and it's going to be really interesting to watch this unfold, mainly because of the dynamics around SMU right now. You're at the top of the ACC. You are alone at the top of the ACC in your very first year there. That is an energy they have not faced in quite some time. Obviously, they were very good in the American. This is a totally different ball game, and it's going to be really interesting to watch what they can do just from a mental perspective as they head into this game. And Thomas Castellanos did leave the game last week, and sounds like he might have left the program. We'll get into that over the next couple of days because it might just be the last time you see Thomas Castellanos in a Boston College jersey because he seemed very frustrated by getting benched for Grayson James last week. But at the end of the day, Grayson James did a good job when he came into the game, but the run game was really what got them that win. It was absolutely dominating against Syracuse, and if they can get it going in this one, it's exactly what you want to do against SMU. Keep that defense or keep that offense on the sideline, make sure you can run the ball, wear them down, and then make sure you're in the fourth quarter with a one-score game. That's all you can really do if you're Boston College, and they've been really good at doing that pretty much all year. Regardless of the team they're playing, even when they probably should blow out that team, they're very good at keeping games close. And it's going to be really interesting to watch that unfold. I think it's going to be a little bit low scoring, but SMU's in a spot that they just haven't faced before. And they're facing a dangerous team that can absolutely keep this one close, absolutely make it a little bit sketchy for them. I think SMU is pretty safe in this one. I think barring some big-time mistakes that happen for SMU, they're probably in pretty good shape as they go into this one. I would like them to win probably a 2 out of 5 on the upset meter, but one to watch. If you can get that Boston College offense rolling downfield and especially that run game, this thing becomes a little bit more interesting in a hurry. The number one team in the country finds themselves right back on the upset alert meter for me, and this one is a little bit more sketchy than anyone they've faced all year, in my opinion. They head on the road to another big-time Big Ten atmosphere this weekend. Wisconsin's been reeling a little bit and looking for that big-time win that has eluded them and really would help out this entire season. I think there's so much confusion around that program, so much confusion about what Luke Fickell's era is going to be. This win would subside a lot of those worries. I can promise you that. But for this to happen, it's got to be a dominating performance from the Wisconsin run game. It's got to be Tawi Walker running downfield, getting a couple of big plays, but also just getting those 3 yards, getting 4 yards, getting 3 yards again, and then just continuing to move the chains. We talk about this Oregon offense every single time you play them. The way to beat them is keep the offense on the sideline. That is maybe the only way to beat them, if I'm being totally honest. So you're in a position where if you're Wisconsin, slow this game down, get the run game going. It's not going to be all that easy against the Oregon defensive line, but you're not going to beat them just going punch for punch between Braden Locke and Dylan Gabriel. I can almost promise you that. So you're going to have to find the run game one way or the other. The good news for them is Wisconsin has one of the best pass defenses in the entire country. They're really good at stopping explosives. They're really good at keeping everything pinned in. Maybe that's what you need to do. If you can stop the explosives and then the run game is solid for Oregon, but not necessarily overwhelming, you could be in a really good position to at least make this one a little bit gross, make it a little bit mucky, and then that's the game that you want. Oregon wants a very clean, up pace, up and down the field type game. Wisconsin wants the exact opposite. So we'll see what happens here. I think the big thing here is whoever gets out to a quick lead first is probably going to win this game. I think if Wisconsin goes up by 14, Oregon could be a little bit shell-shocked and be in a position they hadn't been in, especially with that number 1 next to their name yet. And then if Wisconsin, if you go down 14-0, I don't think you're getting back into this one. I think Oregon's just going to be too much on the offensive side of the ball. I'll put a 3 out of 5 on this one. It's definitely one that I'm watching pretty closely, particularly because Oregon's on the road, but not one that I'm overly worried about for the Ducks. I'll just put it that way. Then we'll get to Colorado, Utah. This is a huge game in so many different ways, and not just, the fact that it is a huge one in the Big 12, but it's a dangerous one for Colorado, and I think the biggest thing here is Colorado has done a great job all year of meeting the physicality of the team that they're playing. Nebraska got them just a little bit early on in the season, but as the season has gone on, as the O-line has gotten better, as the defensive players have gotten better, particularly interior defensive line, they've been really good about keeping up physically with all of the teams they've played. This will be the most physical team they've played since Nebraska. No doubt about that. They might be even more physical than Nebraska. That is what they do. That is the way they made a living for the last 20 years, really, since Kyle Whittingham took over there. So you're in a position now where you're just going to have to bow up. You're going to have to do the thing that you've been able to do the last couple of weeks. You're probably going to have to do it at a little bit higher of a level this time around. And the Colorado run game is not going to be good in this game. Let's just be totally honest. It hasn't been good against much worse much worse run defenses than Utah. So they're not going to be able to run the ball in this game. Colorado has to be successful passing the ball, has to be successful in pass pro most aggressively, because you have some dudes on that Utah defense. You have Logan Fano. You have a couple of edge rushers that will get after your quarterback and will totally change this game. And it's really the best pass rush they've faced since that KSU game. So you're in a position where that last game you lost was at home to a team that's kind of physical, had the nature that Utah has. The other side of that, obviously, is not nearly as explosive of an offense for Utah than it is for Kansas State. So that gives you a little bit of an upper hand here, puts you in a really good position. They should be able to just out-athlete Utah. They should be able to get the ball out on the edge, let LeJontay Wester, let Travis Hunter make those big-time plays. I'm going to put a 4 out of 5 on this one. I think it's really, really dangerous. It's probably one of the toughest games that they're going to face really all year, just from a physicality perspective, but definitely one that is sketchy at the very least. I think we'll do a full breakdown on this one tomorrow just to give you guys a good idea of the full idea of what I think, because it's going to be a fun one. I will say it's a very sketchy one, but as of right now, I'll keep my pick to myself, at least for the time being. Then you got Cincinnati, Iowa State. Iowa State did fall out of the top 25 after their second consecutive loss. They are favored in this game, though, by 9 points, and it's one of those spots where you're sinking like a rock, you're still alive for the Big 12 race. If that game we just talked about, if Utah is able to beat Colorado, you win this game, you're right back in the driver's seat. You're right back in the position where it just comes down to that Kansas State game that you have at your place. So it's going to be really interesting to watch this unfold. Cincinnati is a very good team when it comes to execution. They find a way to get the ball down the field, kind of play a little bit of a, I don't want to say monotonous, but just kind of an execution-based offense. They don't necessarily do anything aggressive downfield. They don't necessarily stretch you too much, but they make the play that's in front of them. Now, last week, they didn't do much of that. They gave the ball away way too often. Brendan Sorsby probably had the worst game he's had at Cincinnati, so a lot of things do need to be fixed up, but for the majority of the year, they've been really good about that, so I'd expect them to go back to that on Saturday. And I think the other part of this is Iowa State just can't play complementary football. They rolled defensively against Texas Tech but could not score. And last week they were able to score pretty much at will. They couldn't stop anything. So this Iowa State team is very, very hard to pin down. And if Cincinnati can get back on track offensively, they can put up some points on this team. So it's definitely something that they're going to have to be a little bit careful about, and definitely something we will be watching into this one. I think it's a huge worry spot for Iowa State. They've been really sinking like a rock, and I think this is one where Cincinnati could get them. I'll put 4 out of 5 on this one, but definitely one to watch down the stretch of this season. And then we got BYU. They're in a weird spot against Kansas because you look at that line, very similar to that Kansas line that they had last week against Iowa State. So I'd be a little bit nervous if I was BYU in this one. But BYU escaped a really bad situation in Salt Lake City last weekend. Now they face another team, but in their home stadium, which is very, very nice. Now the difference between Utah and Kansas is Kansas can put it on you. The Kansas offense is really, really going to work. Jalen Daniels had a remarkable performance the last couple of weeks, and it's been really, really hard to keep this Jayhawks offense down, and they're still fighting for their bowl lives. I believe they're 3-6 right now, if I'm not mistaken. Could be 4-6, but I think they're 3-6, and they're trying to stay alive in this race. This would be a huge win to get us there. And then for BYU, the question I have is the question that I've had really all year. Are you going to get that kick return from Keelan Marion? Are you going to get the turnovers you got last week to put you in a position to win that game? I don't know. It's going to be really, really interesting to watch. They've been great at doing it all year, at forcing turnovers, at making those big plays when they need them. Sometimes it's just a little bit of luck that goes your opposite direction, and then all of that falls apart. So it's going to be interesting to watch that all unfold. And the good news for BYU is here, you can afford a loss and still be right at the top of the Big 12, still be right in the conversation for that Big 12 championship. But as of right now, I'm a little bit worried about this game. This is definitely a 5 out of 5 on the upset meter for me. Definitely one that I'm a little bit worried about, and we'll probably break it down in a little bit more detail tomorrow. So be on the lookout for that, and I'll probably give my official pick on that one tomorrow. But let's take our last break here. When we come back, we got to talk about some questions as we head into this weekend. First, we'll start off just breaking down all of the teams that could be knocked out of the CFP race this upcoming week. So we'll break it down right after this.